Welcome into another edition of OnSide. I'm Kaylin Kyle alongside Andres Cordero. Now, we have a packed show today. We have defender and player for Inter Miami, Mikey Ambrose, joining us. I also have another very special guest with us today, Allan, VP of Community Engagement, to fill us in on just what Inter Miami have been up to during this difficult time. We also have a brand new segment that we begged our producers for called Happy Hour. Yes, very fitting considering we are all stuck at home, so why not have a few cervezas? But first, Dre, welcome. The show's going to be exciting in itself, but I'm a little bit excited for the guests we have on today and then for Happy Hour.
Same. Happy Hour is going to be nice because given that we're at home, we don't even have to wait until it's 5 o'clock. We just have to wait until the right time in the show.
5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, I want to touch on two things, Kaylin, that are not going to be on the show but are worth mentioning. This week, we just lost a South Florida legend, former Miami Dolphins head coach Don Shula, just passed away. He means so much to the city, and I think if you did a Mount Rushmore of Miami sports influencers, icons, he'd definitely be the first person up on the monument. And the other is just a happy belated birthday to the boss, David Beckham. Celebrated a birthday this past week, and he did it the way he does everything, handsomely.
Yeah, he did. But Dre, I want to ask you, before we welcome Mikey, I want to ask you about your jersey that you're wearing, because I'm absolutely loving it.
So this is actually not a team. It's a charity project from a couple of years back. It's called the Iraq Soccer Project. And what they did is by selling these shirts, they were able to afford all-terrain soccer balls to distribute to kids in war-torn Iraq. It was a really cool initiative, and I was happy to buy a couple of shirts and just contribute my part.
Wow, amazing. All right, now let's get into our show because it is, again, jam-packed. So first and foremost, let's welcome our first guest, Mikey Ambrose, defender for your Inter Miami squad. Mikey, how are you holding up?
I'm hanging in there, but thank y'all for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and it's good to talk to you and catch up a little bit.
Now, me and Dre were discussing this. It's such an awkward question to be like, hey, how are you doing? So I changed it to how are you holding up? Dre, I feel like that's a bit more fitting, no?
Yeah, I don't like it, to be honest. I feel it's a weird one. We've all accepted how are you holding up, like under the assumption that we're not doing all that great. But I do love the honesty, right? That we're hearing from guys like Mikey Ambrose who are just like, I'm doing all right.
It's definitely been interesting. But yeah, during this time, you try to find some hobbies or something to keep your time occupied or try to be somewhat productive. So it's been interesting but fun.
Okay, well, speaking of being productive, what have you been doing to keep sane during this time whilst being stuck in your house?
Well, they actually have us still training very hard right now. We're doing, it's pretty much like a regular preseason at the moment. We're doing 2-a-days almost every day. And they have us doing Zoom gym sessions with each other. The whole team gets on a Zoom call and does a gym session, and then we go outside and do a fitness session each day. And it's interesting because there's no parks or beaches open or anything like that. So there's like 4 or 5 of us that live in this apartment area, and we have to run at this dog park right here, which is very interesting. But hey, we got to do what we got to do right now.
Mikey, the last time that we spoke, I learned that you hadn't tried Cuban food yet. There will be time. But that you do like bachata music and that you dance salsa. And so your Latino Latinx credibility is very, very high, which is very important for Inter Miami and just for the city. I'm just curious, where did that come from?
Well, I'm from El Paso, Texas. And growing up there, it's a very Hispanic culture there. And all my best friends, all my classmates, all that growing up were Hispanic. So I would say pretty much on the inside, I have a lot of Hispanic culture on the inside. White on the outside, but a little bit Mexican on the inside, for sure.
Okay, well, speaking of culture, and I know you on a personal level, so I know that you can dance. Now, to fans that don't know that you are actually quite a good dancer, will you show us just a little spice of Mikey Ambrose here on the show today? Can you dance for us, or is that too much of like a hot seat question?
You're just throwing me out there right now, huh?
I am. I'm throwing you under the bus.
I'll give you a little taste, just because we go way back. Way back. I got no music, nothing. All right, here we go.
Amazing.
There we go.
Brilliant.
Dre, what are we rating that?
That's all
I can't believe he did it. I can't believe he did it. Just the sheer bravery of doing it gives him full marks. So
just a little taste.
Love
it gets a lot better if I've had like a full Cuban meal or Colombian meal or something. The flavor comes out a little more.
Yeah. Well, speaking of us going way back, Mikey, obviously I first met you when you played for Orlando City. I was playing for the Orlando Pride. So you played on that expansion team, and then you got traded to the Atlanta United team, another expansion team, huge expansion team. And now you are traded to here to Inter Miami, another massive expansion team. So what is the biggest difference from all these three expansion teams? What makes Inter Miami the best?
Yeah, I mean, it's very different. I appreciated the time that I had at all of those expansion clubs, but this one's a little bit different. And I would say because of the culture that the club brings, the city brings, of really making you feel like it's part of a family here. And since day one, since I first got here, I just felt welcomed. All the people in the community are very welcoming, very open, and it just feels different. It's the other clubs, it was a little bit more like you're showing up for a job, but here it's like you're actually like coming home, and it's like families welcoming you home. So it's a cool feeling, and it's been a good experience so far.
Dre, I'm gonna cut in just one more time because I have a question. Sorry, it's just because I love speaking and hearing my own voice. But obviously, when you got traded here, David Beckham posted on his Instagram, "Welcome to the team, Mikey Ambrose." Now, when you got that notification come through your phone, what was the first thing? Screenshot sent to all my family and friends, retweet, repost. What was going through your mind?
Literally everything you just said happened within like 5 seconds. I couldn't believe it. It was a shock, and I was like, wow. And all my friends, family, they all blew it up even more. So yeah, it was cool. It was a fun situation that happened.
So as Kaylin mentioned, you were playing in Orlando a few years back with Kaká, I might add. That must have been pretty incredible. But how often, if ever, did you manage to just sort of get away from Central Florida and come down to the real Florida, South Florida, in Miami? And what were the thoughts when you learned you were going to play, just outside of the football side of things, because obviously it's a team that was being put together from scratch, but outside of the football, what was the thought from a lifestyle perspective of, I'm going to go play in Miami, I'm going to go play in South Florida?
I mean, first and foremost, it's the career first. So I was very happy to come down here and play for such a big club with a huge owner, and the passion that these fans are going to bring, all that was first and foremost. And second, obviously, it's Miami. It's like a vacation home. So it was very exciting to be able to come down here to all these amazing beaches, all the amazing food. Just everything you experience here in Miami is like nothing else in the world. So it was very exciting, and I've enjoyed it so far.
Now, Mikey, I want to ask you a question. You've obviously, before this whole pandemic happened, you guys had 2 away matches. Now, your first game at LAFC, the fans traveled with you guys, and there's this video, and it went viral, of you guys coming off the bus, and you're dancing and singing with them, and you're right in the middle of it, I may add.
Oh, yeah.
What was that like for you? I know you've played for big clubs. Atlanta has a big following, but when I watched that video, it just seems, like you said, a family. So what was that like, coming off that bus with this new team and this new set of fans?
Yeah, I mean, Paul did a very good job of building this locker room, and he's brought in a lot of like very close friends. So I have a few of my best friends in the world here on this team. So it's a cool experience, and when you have that comfort in the locker room and you have those fans that make you feel like family, everybody's comfortable, everybody's ready to just celebrate and live life together like a family. So it's different for sure. But when we got off that bus, I think it was me and Agadello that started it. But yeah, we were feeling it, so we said, why not? Let's have fun with our fans.
Mikey, you mentioned you have a lot of friends on this team and guys that you have known, because there are quite a few known commodities that Paul McDonald brought onto this team. But there's also some guys who are coming from outside of the league, some young guys coming from South America, guys who are not quite as young but aren't really known to U.S. soccer fans, but I think they will be, guys like Nico Figal. And I'm wondering who might have somebody you didn't know about, you weren't aware of, but they surprised you or they impressed you in some way, and what was it about them that really caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Paul did a great job putting the locker together in terms of relationships, but also on the field. I mean, from top to bottom, our roster is pretty talented, and I'm very excited to see what we can do with it. But in terms of surprising me, there's a lot of guys I didn't know coming from other countries. Julian is a very good player that he unfortunately got hurt early on this year. Nico, I love the way Nico defends in the back. I mean, just everybody that they brought in. Like we have a good group of players, and it's going to be a fun year once everything opens back up.
Now, Mikey, I have a question for you specifically, because I've obviously been lucky enough to follow your career since living and playing in the same city as you, starting in Orlando. And the one thing that I loved about you, and I still love about you, it doesn't matter whether you're starting, you're coming off the bench, you just seem to be like a good locker room guy. You get on with it. You do exactly what you're asked of from the coaching staff, from the assistants, and from your players. Where does that come from?
Well, thank you, first of all. And yeah, I mean, I'm just grateful to play this game. I wake up and I get paid to go kick a ball around, so I have nothing but gratefulness in my heart, and I'm gonna show that every day. I just, the way I was brought up, where I come from, I just work as hard as I can for as long as I can, and hopefully this career keeps going for a long time.
Dre, do you got any last questions before we let Mikey going?
I do actually. Yeah, this is my last question to you, Mikey. I remember in a previous interview that you did, I believe when you were in Atlanta, you were asked sort of what the strength of your game is, and you said it was your mental toughness or your mentality. And I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit. Like, I don't know that fans really pay enough attention to sort of the mental side of the game from some players. Like, you might have a game where your first touch is horrendous, your second touch you're too much inside your head, and it can all sort of, snowball away from you. And so I'm wondering, based on that mental toughness, like, where do you go when you need to kind of like center yourself or settle yourself down? What is it that what sort of exercises might you do that helps you with that side of the game? Yeah,
I mean, the mental side as a pro, Kayla knows this. Anytime you become a pro, it's pure mental game after that. Everybody's talented, everybody's physically gifted, but it's the mental side that really pushes you that much further forward. And I don't know if I'm having an off day or if we're away and we're really the other team is really like playing very well and we're not doing too well. Mentally, that's where it really comes in, the strength. And me personally, I'm a Christian, so I'll say a prayer or something. If it's not going well, I'll just say a little verse in my head or something, and that calms me down a little bit, and then I'm able to just push on and push through those situations, because those situations are going to happen as a pro all the time, and you just got to keep fighting through that and stay mentally strong, stay mentally prepared for whatever the coach asks of you, whatever the team requires of you. And yeah, I've been grateful and blessed enough to have 6 years now as a pro, and I've gone through a lot of mental things, and that mental strength has pulled me through for sure.
Mikey, this is one of the 1,000 reasons why I love you, what you just said there, your mental toughness. You'll do anything for your players, you'll do anything for your staff. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for giving us an insight so fans get to know you just a little bit more, and we'll fall in love with you like we do.
Well, thank you guys. It was a pleasure, and thank y'all for having me on here.
All right, now don't go anywhere, because when we come back, Chris Allan joining us, VP of Community Engagement, and he tells us all about Deliver Lean. Welcome back to OnSide. That was a fantastic one-on-one interview with Mikey Ambrose, a true player both on and off the pitch, so expect big things from him coming up this season. Now, one of the things I love most about the club is all the work they have been doing in the community, especially during such a crazy time right now with COVID-19 hitting the world hard. Joining us today to dive in a little deeper of just what the club has been up to is Chris Allan, VP of Community Engagement. Chris, welcome to OnSide.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, the club has been doing so much stuff kind of behind the scenes in the community. I can't even keep up with it all. So first I want to talk to you about Deliver Lean. Can you just tell us a little bit about this initiative that the club is doing?
Of course, yes. So one of our focus areas is really helping people with the basic need of putting food on their table for their family every night. So we've partnered with Deliver Lean, who are an incredible company who are from South Florida. We've opened up our stadium as a location for food pickup. So we've been helping food donations, and then every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. our stadium is open for people in the community in Broward to come by the stadium and pick up food. It's a big bag of food, breakfast food and lunch, dinner. There's a lot of food that goes into the bag, and we've been able to impact a lot of people by doing that. So we'll be doing it every Wednesday from now on.
A lot is an understatement. 700 Delivery Lean boxes and lunches have been donated thus far. So it's an absolute incredible what you guys are doing. Now I want to jump to just the logo of the club. Now it's changed a little bit. Can you talk us through why you guys decided to change it?
Yeah, absolutely. So our logo obviously has two herons and they're touching. And so very early on into this pandemic, we were really looking at ways that we could help educate the community both at a local and a global level. Of course, we have fans very close to us in South Florida, but around the world. And we were just thinking of ways when this started to really help get the message out. And what better way than to show our commitment to social distancing and how important it is. By separating the herons, we were the first sports team to do it, and then a couple of other teams followed trends, which was nice. But really, the importance was if we could change one person's mind for them to say, "Wow, look, even sports teams, even Inter Miami, are changing their logo. This is pretty serious. We need to adhere to this." Then it worked. But we were kind of a little bit fortunate that we had two herons touching, but we wanted to take advantage of that and separate them so they were adhering to CDC regulations as well.
Chris, that's brilliant. Thanks for coming on and chatting with us about this stuff. One of the things that I think has stood out to most people is just we appreciate them sort of in our before times in the day-to-day, but especially now, first responders, nurses, doctors, people working at the hospitals have been really they can't take the time off that they normally would want to. And I know that the club has sort of reached out to help in partnering with Baptist Health. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our first responders, our medical professionals, doctors, nurses, they're on the front lines of this pandemic, risking their own lives, staying isolated from their families, and we wanted to do whatever we could to help them in as many ways as we could. So we have partnered with Baptist Health on this. We've donated over 3,000 masks and helped with PPE equipment, helped with food, and helped to raise money as well. So the club, we had a fundraising campaign which we raised over $25,000, and then the club itself actually decided to match that. So we've been able to donate over $50,000 to Baptist to help with their COVID-19 relief fund, as well as helping with PPE.
Now we're not done yet. There's more that you guys have done. Now, obviously I love David Guetta, okay? So when I saw on my social media, it was blowing up, videos were going viral, I was like, what is this concert? Now, it was actually you two that worked together. So it was Inter Miami times David Guetta to put on this concert to raise money. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so we were approached by David Guetta and his team. He's often in South Florida, has a place here, and he was trying to think of ways to raise money and raise awareness, and he decided to do a live concert and chose Miami to do that. And so we helped elevate that project and help raise money. I think it raised over $750,000 for Feeding South Florida, which was incredible. We gave him a custom Inter Miami jersey, which he then very kindly signed and turned around and gave it back to us. So we auctioned that off and raised another $3,000. But it was an incredible event to be a part of. It really brought the community together in South Florida, especially in Brickell, but people were watching from all over South Florida and the world, and David was incredible. So it was really great to be a part of. But again, just to help get that word out, help to raise money, anything we can do was we really want to help. So
And I'm not gonna lie, I was on my back patio in Brickell before we moved. We lived in Brickell. Me and my husband had way too many margaritas, but it was a phenomenal concert. It was one of the coolest things. I remember on FaceTime showing my family, and truly, obviously I'm Canadian living in America now. It was truly one moment that I will never forget. So great from you guys. Dre?
And Chris, yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything, but if there's any way that Inter Miami fans or Inter Miami play-by-play commentators could help out in any way or go anywhere for information, is there anything in the works? Is there anything in place where people could get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, our Deliver Lean campaign, which we'll also bring into Miami-Dade soon, we partnered with some of our corporate partners of the club. Captain Morgan have been incredible and have donated $55,000 to the club, and we turned around and gave that to the Morning Family Foundation, as they're doing incredible work in underserved communities in Miami-Dade. So we're trying to cover as much of South Florida as we can. So deliverleanscare.com is a great resource. You can go on and have food collected and donate food there. And if anyone ever wants to come out and volunteer at the food drive, they're more than welcome to. Our supporters have been incredible. Southern Legion, Vice City, and the Siege, the guys you were talking about with Mikey jumping all over in LA, they've been volunteering and helping, raising money and volunteering too. So we're very fortunate to have an incredible network and community here. So if people want to get involved, they can reach out to the club, and we'd be more than happy to let them help.
Amazing.
I feel like I'm speaking for me and Dre, but Dre, I think we need to go out to the next Deliver Lean. What do you think?
We'll be there.
Okay, I love it. Well, thank
Happy
you, Chris.
to have you.
Yes, we'd love it. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Absolute pleasure. Keep doing what you guys are doing, both in front of the scenes and behind the scenes, because what you guys are doing is absolutely incredible and making a massive difference for not only here in Miami, but for around the world.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right, now don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we sip into happy hour.
Born and raised in Berlin, played there, youth academy, Hertha Berlin. Then went to Stuttgart when I was like 18, played there for 4 years. From that on, I went to Düsseldorf, second division club. We got promoted to the first division. Then I was in Texas, El Paso, a year, close to a year, I would say 8 months. And now I'm in Miami. Fun, eventful, interesting. I think it shaped me a lot. You get to see so many different cultures and like ways of living, and you just mature from sports. I think sports is a great way to unite and to grow up as a man.
Comes and waves so slow.
Welcome back. Now, I don't even think we can call this next segment work, but here we are, Dre. Happy hour with Kay and Dre. How the heck did we pull this one off?
Yeah, I don't know that I call any of this work, but especially this portion of the program. And so first and foremost, a big thanks to Biscayne Brewing Company. They sent us these Tropical Bay IPAs, which I'm a big fan of the IPA, a big fan of this one as well. So as we explain what we're doing here, Kaylin, we'll just crack that open.
Yeah, let's crack that open. Can we, virtual cheers, social distancing?
Cheers, salud.
Salud.
And so the concept for this happy hour segment is real easy. Like in any profession, journalists, when they're done covering a game, covering an event, you might head over to the local pub, have a beer, talk shop. We do plan in the future to invite people from behind the scenes, whether it's supporters groups, people working behind the scenes in the clubs, the Inter Miami club that is, journalists, beat writers. But for this first episode, Kaylin, we figure it's a relatively new show, like it's a new team. People may not be as familiar with you and I. In fact, there's stuff about each other that we don't quite know yet. So I say over a beer, we get to know each other a little better and give people a chance to get to know us.
I love this. Can I give the fans just a little hint of who we're having next segment, though? Is that okay? Or should I wait for the end? Let's give them a teaser. So next segment, we are inviting on, because no one wants to hear me and Dre talk about ourselves week in and week out. I mean, I would, but I don't think fans would. Matt, he is the groundskeeper for Inter Miami. He was at Orlando City and now he's here. I've worked with him before and he is truly one of the best and he is hilarious. So tune in next week because you literally are not going to want to miss that. He's going to crack open a cold one with us. And like I said, he is absolutely hilarious. So Dre, now...
Yes.
I've asked you this question, obviously, off television and off recording, but when you got the phone call, obviously I know you're from Miami, you're not born here, but you were raised here. When you got the phone call that you got the Inter Miami job, what did that mean to you? Because when you told me the story, it literally melted my heart and it just like made me all happy inside.
You know, I've been fortunate throughout my career to cover, big events. I've covered World Cups, Copa Americas, major, world soccer events. But when I got that, thumbs up that they wanted me to do play-by-play for the team, they wanted me to be part of the broadcast team along with you, along with Ray Hudson and with Fernando Fiore, it was genuinely one of the most proud moments of my life. As you said, I wasn't born in the United States, but I've lived in the U.S. since I was 8 years old. Coming from Cuba, I've lived in Miami since that time. I've grown up here, I've went to school here, university, so I thought about the guys that I know that covered the teams, the Miami Dolphins, the Heat, the Marlins over the years, and how much those guys were sort of institutions in and of themselves by just the longevity that they had and how they helped sort of cement the memories that you had of those teams over the years. And to be able to do that in my hometown, for a team that I would support. I mean, when I got you asked what my feelings were when I got the call. I was in the process of selecting my season tickets when I got the call. So I was fully committed to this team no matter what. And it worked out that I'm going to get a much better seat than I could have anticipated.
Oh, this is why I love you. Okay, I'm taking my second question, so you're just going to have to hold off for a second. Just because you literally are the most interesting man in the world. Like, put Will Ferrell behind, because you literally know everything about football. But what I love about you is, yes, you grew up in the media side of it. So a journalist, you're great at writing, you're great at hosting, you're great at presenting. But when you call games, I just look at you, and when I listen to you, I feel like you've played the game for years. I know you play pickup during the week, but I just feel like you have the mindset and the knowledge that players have. So I guess my question for you is, how do you balance that? How do you balance being the media side of it, and how do you balance of having the actual knowledge of the game, the ins and the outs, the tactics, what players should be doing, the movement of players, because that's not easy to do.
Right. So first, that was extremely kind, so thank you.
Well, you paid me to say that, so.
Yeah, well, not anymore. Now that's void. No, but there's two separate things here. It's one, as a play-by-play man, as a broadcaster, I'm predominantly a storyteller. But as a football fan, my entire life my entire adult life has been dedicated to learning the game, to studying the game, because broadcasting aside, I was just obsessed with soccer. And I started playing soccer at a pretty advanced age. I didn't pick it up when I was a little kid. It wasn't a big sport in Cuba at the time. So I sucked. I was very, very bad at first. And that made me play with a chip on my shoulder. And then when I started playing the game before I started watching and covering it, and once I started covering, I went into it with the same mentality that I needed to get better, that I needed to learn, that I needed to pour myself into it. And to be honest, there weren't any shortcuts. It's taken a long time. It took a lot of hours, weekends sacrificed, time spent with friends on a Friday night, on a Saturday night. Dre was at home researching, Italian football, African football, Spanish football. So you sort of commit yourself to it fully. With the humility to know that you don't know as much as you think you do. And one person who was a huge influence in my career is now my color commentator for Inter Miami is Ray Hudson. And it's when I started, around 2004, I started working with Ray, and I realized that he was seeing things in the game that I couldn't see, that I didn't know to pick out those things, because there's thousands of things happening during the course of a 90-minute match. And I was just obsessed with, how do I gain that knowledge? And I've poured myself into it, and the accumulation of years is, you put a little layer after layer after layer, And so that knowledge wasn't for the broadcasting, that knowledge was for myself. It just is a benefit that I could bring it out in broadcasting. And I'm gonna jump in before you jump into
I know,
the third
you
question.
know me, you already know me too well. I was gonna ask my third.
I've got to anticipate you in that regard.
I know.
You have an absurdly athletic family, Kaylin.
Yes.
You're not just your husband who's a pro footballer, your his father, who obviously Everton icon, but your parents were both athletes at a pretty high level. Your sister also played. What's it like to grow up in a family that's that athletic, that accomplished? And is it very competitive? Is it more sort of fraternal? How was that?
Okay, let's just put it this way. So I obviously grew up in a place called Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, very small. So I ended up playing many age groups ahead. So I ended up playing on my sister's team. So when we had training sessions, obviously on the same team, we had to go in separate vehicles. So my mom would take my sister and my dad would drive me, because the amount of arguments on the way home from training, because if it was, because she was a defender and I was a midfielder, I was more attacking player back in the day, and she was just dirty, got stuck in, tackled. So it was always ended in like screaming matches, never like hair pulling. We were kind of like boys in that way, like fists would be thrown. So we always went in separate vehicles, always, whether that to games, to training sessions, it didn't matter. And then I love my mom. She tries saying that she is very athletic, and we get it from her. She was a curler, which I'm not taking anything away from curlers, because it is a very difficult sport. I played in high school. But she's cute. At least she's got
The
a
most
big heart,
Canadian you've ever. It's the most Canadian I've ever heard you, by the way. But go ahead.
I know. Usually I'm a bit more blunt, but if she tunes into this every week, so I have to be nice. And then my father, he was a professional hockey player, so what I learned from him, and I think this stayed with me through all of my career, and this is why a lot of people compare me to a male, I let things go. Like I'm not afraid to get yelled at, whether that be now in media or someone tell me you're doing this wrong, because I feel like that only makes you better. It's never a negative, and if you're taking it as a negative, then you're not willing to switch things, whether that be playing or whether that be in broadcasting. And I still have work to do both on the broadcasting side of things, but that's what I'm like so appreciative of my father for, is he was very blunt with us. He was very honest with us, but he never pushed us into wanting to do something. He's like, the one thing that actually stuck with me, and it still sticks with me, if you fall out of love with something, it means you need to move on from it. So I knew when I was falling out of love with football playing that I needed to move on, but I knew I loved the game too much to never see it again or never commentate on it. So that's why I went into the media side of it. And then my father-in-law, Everton legend, so those are huge boots to follow in. My husband's a professional soccer player. Then my sister-in-law married a footballer, played for United. His twin brother plays for Everton. So there's just like it's always competitive in our family, even like card nights. Like there needs to always be alcohol flowing, because it just calms the place. Well, sometimes it calms the place down, but it's just such a competitive atmosphere, and I love that because that's what I grew up with. So
how was the transition? How was the transition then from doing something that you were good at, because you have over 100 caps for Canada?
Yeah.
You played at major events. You had some really incredible career-defining games, and then you walk into something where I almost spilled my beer there. You walk into something where it's very new to you, and it's sort of outside of your comfort zone. Yeah, you might know the subject matter, but I think about how awkward people are the first time they're on camera. How did that go for you?
Awkward is an understatement. I don't think I can swear on here, but I was crapping myself. My first gig with TSN, obviously they're up in Canada. I knew a lot of the folks that worked at TSN because of obviously I'd played. They always were the broadcasters for us, same reporters for us. So it was a bit comfortable that way. But I remember I showed up to my first gig. I was color commentating a U17 national team game. And the guy, Vic Router, he's the voice of Canada. Like, he is a legend up there. And I remember I came with this big portfolio of notes. And he's like, is that for the whole tournament of every single team? I was like, no, it's just for this game. And he was like, well, best of luck. And I will never forget that. Like, simplify your work. Make sure you have it on 1 or 2 pages, because you can't be flipping while watching the game. And then actually, I have to tell this story because it was hilarious. I came down here to Miami, obviously, because my husband's job, and I was looking, I was like, what do I do? I knew BN was situated here. I had done a La Liga experience with Ray Hudson 2 years past. So I was like, I'm just going to reach out, go in for an interview. And I remember I went in for an interview, and it was George DiMatteis. He was my host of the show. And the producer came in, and my boss, still my boss, but he was like, can you host? can you teleprompter read? Can you write your own script? I was like, yes, 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 and yes.
Sure.
Yeah, no problem. My producer walked out, and I was on Google like, okay, what do I do? How do I do this? And I remember I ended up getting the job, but it was like the most nerve-wracking thing. And then obviously got to Inter Miami with you guys. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think I was going to get it, if I'm being completely honest. But I'm so happy because I learned so much from everyone, from you, from Ray, from the guys on the weekend, covering La Liga. I mean, I would have never thought that I would be here in a million years. And like you said, you learn as you go. You're gonna make mistakes. I'm sure you still make mistakes, which I don't think you do. You try to tell me you do, but I've never heard one. But it's just exciting, and we're with one of the biggest clubs in the MLS. So like, I still pinch myself. I'm like, how the hell am I here? How am I doing this? But it's just an exciting ride, and I'm glad to be doing it with you, with Ray, with Fernando, with the team, everyone behind the scenes, our producer here. Everyone just works so hard, and it's so professional. So I know we're only gonna go like this. So.
Yep. Once again, I just want to say thank you to Biscayne Brewing Company.
Yes.
This tropical BIP is awesome. Thanks for sending it. And I still can't believe that we brought this up in our production meeting on Wednesday, almost, thinking we're going to be laughed off of the call. And instead of hanging up on us 30 minutes after the call was over, we got a text saying, where do we send the beers? Yeah. So thanks.
My husband answered the door and they were like, beer delivery? And he was like, what kind of work are you doing? I'm like, it's happy hour on our show. He's like, geez. But no, it's awesome. And Dre, thank you again. Another episode in the books. Mikey Ambrose, thank you so much. Chris, thank you for coming on and diving into what the club is doing behind the scenes and giving back. It's truly remarkable. I can't wait for next week because we have another special guest and we also have our fans joining us. This is all about the fans. Let's just be completely honest. There's no club without supporters. So please send in your questions to us. There's a WhatsApp number. Write your questions, audio, whatever, any way to get it to us, and we will try to answer your questions, and you will be part of the show in our third segment. So make sure you're doing that because, again, we wouldn't be here without you. The club wouldn't be here without the supporters. So Dre, again, thank you for today. Thank you for our fans. Thank you for everyone on our show, and we cannot wait for next week.